a seat so that we can start the next session.
네, 다시 한번 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 지금 온라인에 발표자분들이 대기하고 계셔서 지금 너무 죄송하지만 바로 다음 세션 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 다음 세션 주제는 여성 리더십인데요. 네, 지금 장내에
Women leadership. So please take your seat and we're going to begin in a few minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon begin the next session, so please be seated. 네, 그럼 이제 본격적으로 네 번째 세션 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 네 번째 세션은 여성 리더십인데요. 이끌어 주실 박은하 부산광역시 국제관계대사님 먼저 소개 올리겠습니다. 박은하 대사님께서는 대한민국 최초 여성 국제관계대사이시자 또 대사로 부임하시기 전에 주 영국 특명 전권대사로 3년간 역임하셨습니다. 그 외에 주 뉴욕 영사, 주 UN 참사관, 외교부 개발협력국장 그리고 공공외교 대사를 비롯해서 외교관으로서 주요 보직을 거치셨습니다. 지난 8월부터 부산시 국제관계대사로 부임하시면서 부산의 국제화 역량과 수준을 높이고자 활약을 하고 계십니다. 그럼 박은하 대사님 큰 박수로 모시겠습니다.
Hello. I think we have a good enough social distancing here, so if you are okay, let me take off my mask. Thank you for the introduction. I am the Ambassador for International Relations of Busan Metropolitan City. Thank you for inviting me and to have me as a moderator for this important conference. Today we will talk about the women leadership, and we have two presenters and two panelists invited from home and abroad. And first, let me introduce the first presenter, Enna Stephenson, the former Danish ambassador to UK, the CEO of Danish Shipping. Ms. Stephenson, the ambassador, earned MA in Science from London School of Economics and Political Science and MA in Politics from Aarhus University of Denmark. In 1998, she was appointed as Danish Consul General to New York and also attended as the panel for special session on Maritime at P4G Seoul Summit as the former Danish ambassador to UK. She will present on the role of women in the maritime industry, which is really important, but still we have a long way to go. So she will talk about the role of women in the maritime industry. So please welcome her.
스티븐슨 대사님 연결되었나요?
So are we online?
Dear friends, thank you very much for the opportunity for me to speak at this global conference for women in maritime 2021. I'm really pleased to note that we keep the focus on women in maritime even though times during the COVID-19 have been tough. The coronavirus has indeed turned our daily lives upside down. We have learned new ways to how to work on distance, for example, managing children, schoolwork, husbands, dogs, and at the same time keeping ourselves working, and we, or maybe even more, people outside this industry have also learned that seafarers and people in the shipping industry are some of the real heroes, staying on board much longer than planned, keeping up the world trade and our supply chains alive and kicking, and not knowing when to see their families, thanks to all the corona restrictions all over the world. So why do we put special focus on this subject? More women in maritime. For obvious reasons, I was just about to say, because we miss half of the talent mass if we are not able to attract and retain women to and in our industry. But we also know that diversity creates better financial results, better dynamics in the working place, better working environment, and also making sure that our workplaces are taking decisions on a nuanced and innovative way. Furthermore, shipping is in a transition period from a very fossil fuel black industry to a green and carbon neutral industry. Same transition as when we came from sail to steam and from steam to diesel. Therefore, attracting new talent becomes even more important, as it is more than maritime skills that we need in the shipping industry in the future. The time has passed where we could settle with people trained at sea or by people trained in the shipping companies by peers. We are now looking into a need for people with other skills, climate skills, data analytical skills, IT skills, and not least a new green mindset. That means we have to tap into all the talent pools that we can. This also requires a whole new narrative about our industry and a major cultural change which can pave the way for more diversity, new ways of doing things, and new ways of recruiting. This is why we in Danish shipping found that the time has come to work more thoroughly with the recruitment and retention of women in shipping. We started out with a Girl Power campaign showing female role models in all our material, in working and educational situations, and with a lot of pink merchandise. This got a lot of attention, and we are pretty sure that it actually had some impact on the numbers of women trying to get into our industry. This September we did the same campaign, and we are hopeful that we will see more female students in the years to come. Next step was in the beginning of 2019, where we established a task force with representatives from our members, the ship-owning companies, the unions, the maritime school, and not least female role models who could tell us what the challenges and barriers for a career in this industry would be. The work resulted in 10 recommendations to the industry, and let me just mention a few of them. Set specific targets for the number of women in your organization. Make sure that management take the lead, because we know that if management team does not set the course and lead the way themselves, change rarely happens. Support the women, for example, by preparing a good onboarding process, offer a mentor, review the shipping company's staff policy, complaints procedures, etc. Stand up to harassment and bullying. Say no to harassment of any kind. And manage conflicts properly. Establish a clear complaints procedure that is accessible to all staff. We followed this up by launching a charter for more women in shipping, to increase the number of women in the shipping industry and to ensure that women and men have equal opportunities to develop a career in shipping. The shipping companies who signed the charter promised to set concrete and specific goals and develop a strategy to increase the number of women in their company. Appoint a member within the senior management to take responsibility of the initiative. ensure a working culture and personnel policy which promote equal opportunities for both men and women, and to share experiences and results of the work done on the basis of the Charter. 30 members, covering more than 75% of all employees in Danish shipping, have now signed the Charter and are working seriously with the targets, and are now already well underway with initiatives meant to increase gender equality. I.e., there are companies now performing salary checks, companies training all employees in gender diversity, or driving campaigns against bullying and harassment, including sexual harassment. One company are also sending all relevant material through a gender decoder, and several have focused on changing the recruitment procedures to address the gender biases. That being said, we still have some way to go. We know from our work through the years that there are women experiencing barriers related to being a woman in this industry, such as unequal treatment and unequal pay, even sexual harassment. And we need to address this also to ensure that we can include all people, men and women, in our industry. And we will conquer. All of us in this industry knows that we are a very exciting industry, an industry that never sleeps, and an industry that is really global and full of challenges and opportunities. So we have a lot to offer, which we of course also have to focus on. The vision is that in 2030, we will not be seen as either a male-dominated or a field-dominated industry, but as a modern and climate-friendly industry carried by diversity and career opportunities that has the future ahead of it. I hope you will join us on this journey. Have a good conference. Thank you.
안나 스티븐슨 대표님께서
She mentioned very important things during her presentation, particularly during this pandemic. Female leadership is really important. She mentioned that. And also, as we are observing a new turning point for the shipping industry, female workers need to improve their certain skills and knowledge, particularly with regard to digital literacy and data analytics and climate change responding mindset, like green mindset. So those are important things of today. And yes, gender diversity and gender equality. She mentioned why it is important and what kind of benefits we can expect from achieving gender equality. And she also shared with us some important policies at her company and some toolbox. So that was very insightful as well. And particularly, there are various problems for female workers like wage gap or sexual harassment or gender inequality. Well, yes, regarding all that, we need to seek some changes in the working place culture. So that is true. And she said that we will conquer all these challenges. That's great, and I like it so much. So I hope that we can work together to achieve the goal by 2030. So once again, thank you so much for sharing your important stories. And the next speaker is Ms. Carolina Alvarez-Ossorio, Head of Marketing and Communications at ECOALF. Director Carolina has been in the global luxury beauty brand for over 13 years. And now she is working to stop the inappropriate use of natural resources in the industry. She's launching a lot of campaigns. And she's working with the Spanish fashion brand ECOALF currently. And ECOALF has a vision of reducing marine waste from its beginning and is well known for its pursuit of pursuing recycling activities in Europe. And the director has joined us from Spain. And the title of her presentation is From Marine Waste to Fashion. And she'll talk about some female leadership in business management challenges. So please welcome Director Carolina with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much for the Global Conference for Women Maritime to invite ECOALF and to invite myself to join today's session. I would like to start giving a brief introduction to what is ECOALF. ECOALF was born back in 2009 with our founder, Javier Goyeneche. He wanted to stop using natural resources in a careless way to ensure those of the next generations. And he wanted to create a truly sustainable fashion brand. The most sustainable was to use recycling materials if we were able to create a new generation of recycled products with the same quality and design as the best non-recycled in the industry. This all happens in 2009 at the birth of his first two sons, Alfredo and Alvaro, and this is why the name of ECOALF is coming from, because ECOALF represents the fabrics of the future generations. So this is back in 2009, and today, 12 years later, the mission and the vision of ECOALF is exactly the same, remains intact. Also, the team has grown. We have grown from 6 people when the company started to around 100 people, and very proud to say today that approximately 73% of the ECOALF team is made of women. The soul of ECOALF is the Upcycling the Oceans project. ECOALF is very much linked to the ocean. We create fashion products that are made with the ocean waste. And this is all going back into 2015, when thanks to a fisherman that told us that there was a lot of waste in the ocean, we started the Upcycling the Oceans project with the ECOALF Foundation. And this is a circular economy project, a very simple project that we did with 3 fishermen in one port in the south of Spain, where we decided to put a container on the boat. So every time the fishermen collect the fish and the amount of waste that comes out of the fishing nets, instead of throwing it back into the ocean, they throw all this waste into containers. This is done after a 12-hour fishing day, every single day of the week. This then arrives to port, where we put bigger containers, and all this waste is thrown in the bigger containers. This is then collected on a weekly basis, all the waste, and it's then separated, classified, and sent out to the different recycling facilities. This is where then ECOALF will keep the plastic bottles, the PET, to create a new recycled polyester yarn and introduce it into our coats, jackets, footwear, and introduce these new recycled products in the collection of ECOALF. Now, this initiative started with 3 fishermen in one port in the south of Spain, and today it has grown to more than 50 ports across all the Mediterranean in Spain, working with the collaboration of more than 3,000 fishermen, out of which there are many women fishermen as well, that are collecting all this waste every day, that they're witnessing every day in the ocean. Because approximately 75% of marine debris is at the bottom of the ocean, and nobody is collecting this, and nobody sees this. We see the waste in the beach, we see the waste floating in the water, but the waste in the bottom of the ocean is where the ECOALF Foundation, with the Upcycling the Oceans project and the fishermen, is working to take out and to remove this marine debris, and then recycle it and turn it into give it a second life, to high quality products for fashion in the case of ECOALF. So this project is now expanded into Thailand, together with the government of Thailand in 5 islands, but also across the Mediterranean Sea. So we are currently in Italy, in Greece, probably France by the end of the year. And our objective is to clean the entire Mediterranean Sea, work with more than 10,000 fishermen across the Mediterranean Sea by 2025. We have taken out already 700 tons of waste from the bottom of the ocean, thanks to the fishermen. And we continue to clean what's at the bottom of the ocean. Also very proud to say that behind the ECOALF Foundation, the general manager of the foundation is also a fantastic woman, Irene, who is responsible for meeting the fishermen, setting up the relationship with the different stakeholders, because it's different in every country, and ensuring that we have a traceable and transparent process from the collection of the waste all the way to the high quality yarn, and ensuring that we give this waste a second life. Now, the ECOALF team, we're approximately 73% women. In the board, we are approximately 50% women. And as we continue to grow, we're very, very proud to say that the entire ECOALF team is aware that we are facing one of the most critical times that planet Earth is facing, which is climate change. We believe that we are working towards a better planet. We need to continue to protect the planet. We evaluate every single decision that we take, making sure the impact is positive in the planet. And we will continue to do this together with all the different women and stakeholders in the company that continue to be part of the solution and fight together for a better planet. So thank you very much.
너무 멋진.
That's such a beautiful project. Thank you for introducing your great project, Director Carolina. So ECOALF is a Spanish brand, and I could see that what kind of philosophy and vision you had when the brand was established. And I can see that the projects are in line with your initial vision as well. I can see that you started to clean up the ocean with 3 fishermen in a small port in Spain, and now it is expanding to the entire Mediterranean Sea ocean. So I see that is great, and I hope that it can go further beyond the European continent. So for us and for sustainable life, well, yes, big major projects matter. However, I believe that we can make small steps as well. If we think innovatively and if we take some actions locally, I believe that we can have some impact on the global community like ECOALF did. So that's really innovative and beautiful project. Thank you for sharing that with us. So ocean debris. When you throw out things in the ocean, they all come back to you. So now we have to stop throwing waste into the ocean, but it is also important to remove the waste that are already in the ocean. So that is really insightful, and thank you so much for sharing with us your projects. And now I believe that we can begin the panel discussion session. So we have 2 panelists. So first panelist that I have to introduce is Ms. Sandra Cohen, Political Counselor of Embassy of France to Korea. Ms. Cohen is in charge of diplomatic policies as well. Well, I'm sorry, I guess I have some different information here. So I guess that we have another speaker. So now I am going to invite the next speaker.
Lexi Proctor is in charge of these IMO technology cooperative programs, and she has the experiences of running and developing these tech cooperation projects, and she's also an expert in the maritime international development. So we're going to invite Louise Proctor for presentation, please. Ms. Louise Proctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any, good afternoon, good evening and good morning. I'm very pleased to be representing the International Maritime Organisation's Women in Maritime programme at today's Global Conference for Women in Maritime. IMO's gender program was initiated in 1988, which is 33 years ago. In fact, IMO was in the vanguard of United Nations specialised agencies that forged a global program known as the Integration of Women in the Maritime Sector. At that time, only a few maritime training institutions had opened their doors to female students. Since then, IMO's gender and capacity building program has helped put in place an institutional framework to incorporate a gender dimension into IMO's policies and procedures. There is ample evidence that investing in women is the most effective way to lift communities, companies, and even countries. The evidence is clear. Equality for women means progress for all. It's a fact that shipping has historically been a male-dominated industry, and that tradition runs long and deep and will continue to do so. However, through its gender and capacity building program, which as I said is now in its 33rd year, IMO is making a concerted effort to help the industry move forwards and to help women achieve a representation that is in keeping with the 21st century expectations. In placing the human element and capacity building high on its agenda, IMO recognises that the shipping industry must reach out to every sector of the community if it is to attract the very best people and pursue a maritime career. Gender equality is a key focus of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Sustainable Development Goals are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects for everyone, everywhere. The UN describes gender equality as not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. The UN further states that gender equality means that women and men and girls and boys enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protections. It does not require that girls and boys or women and men be the same or that they be treated exactly alike. Gender equality affects us all, and it's not just a woman's issue. Despite much effort and significant progress in many domains over the last decades, gender equality is still lagging behind in a rapidly changing world. Men and women may experience the day-to-day manifestations of these strains in their interactions, in their search for jobs and participation in the labour market, or in accessing credit, technology and assets as they continue to perform their socially ascribed roles. While some may benefit from new opportunities, many may continue with traditional gender roles and suffer from increased burdens and stress. Empowering women fuels thriving economies across the world. It spurs growth and development, and it benefits everyone working in the global maritime community in the drive towards safe, secure, clean, and sustainable shipping. As such, gender equality is at the heart of every initiative that IMO undertakes, and we are strongly committed to helping countries achieve their sustainable development goals. The slogan that underpins IMO's Women in Maritime program is training, visibility, recognition. Under this slogan, IMO designs its program activities to support the participation of women in both shore-based and seagoing roles, and we have had great success stories of women reaching leadership positions. Present in all IMO's gender initiatives, both as key stakeholders and mentors, are the female graduates of the World Maritime University and the International Maritime Law Institute. Their presence as maritime administrators and decision makers has reinforced the impact that female role models have in encouraging new female recruits into the industry. IMO also supports the empowerment of women through gender-specific fellowships by facilitating access to high-level technical training for women in the maritime sector, particularly in developing countries. We also support training on aids to navigation and women in port management and port security every year. IMO works with various maritime stakeholders to foster an environment in which women are identified and selected for career development opportunities in maritime administrations, ports, and maritime training institutes. Visibility and recognition are also critical to the success of achieving gender equality. IMO continues to seek opportunities to raise awareness of the importance of gender equality and to highlight the important yet underutilised contribution of women within the maritime sector. In 2019, IMO dedicated the World Maritime Day theme to empowering women in the maritime community. This is an important example of shining the light on women in maritime and encouraging the maritime sector to have more open conversations and dialogue about the issues surrounding gender equality in the maritime sector. To ensure firm action beyond 2019, IMO approved an Assembly resolution on preserving the legacy of the World Maritime theme for 2019 and achieving a barrier-free working environment for women in the maritime sector. IMO's successful campaign to promote women in maritime also includes supporting the establishment of 8 regional Women in Maritime associations covering more than 150 countries and dependent territories. These associations provide a springboard for developing regional training opportunities to match the specific needs and requirements of women, taking into account the socio-cultural elements of their particular location. Access to these regional networks have provided members with a platform to discuss a number of issues, not just about gender, but also technical issues, to share experiences, lessons learned, and could go a long way to bridging the gap and narrowing some of the institutional barriers and cultural stigma that women who enter the maritime industry face. Today, IMO's Women in Maritime Gender Program is going strong. Under the IMO auspices, 8 regional maritime associations for women have been established in Africa, the Arab states, Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America, and the Pacific. In 2020, the impact of COVID, and also in 2021, has been harshly felt by the IMO. The Women in Maritime program activities were able to continue using online delivery methods where possible in a scaled back approach. This included some training courses, virtual conferences, webinars, strategic developments, and social media campaigns and mentorship. The challenges of COVID have made us rethink the best strategies for developing with impact and continuing to add value for the program participants, as well as our key partners in the regions in the future. 2021 saw a strong focus on strengthening strategic partnerships with the United Nations system and other regional partners to help achieve these important goals. Information sharing, additional regional WEMAs, and continued delivery of program activities under the IMO resolution did continue to some extent. There are two outcomes that IMO is particularly proud of. Firstly, the IMO and WISTA International have launched the Women in Maritime Survey to examine the proportion and distribution of women working in the maritime sector. The survey will provide crucial baseline data to understand more about the global profile and numbers of women in the maritime sector, which will allow us to develop targeted support for women to help them achieve their career goals. This work is ongoing, and we are expecting to provide preliminary analysis of the findings soon, which will be made public. Secondly, the IMO Council made a recent decision in the last month to endorse an IMO International Women in Maritime Day every year on the 18th of May. We are proud to have this dedicated day to celebrate the achievements of women in the maritime sector and continue to recognise and raise awareness of the importance of women and related maritime issues. So what's next? The goal of the program is to make a concerted effort to take women into the next phase of their careers, from junior and middle management into senior management, breaking through the glass ceiling and building on the successes of the foundations of the program laid over the last 30 years. The idea is to focus on mentoring, training, fellowships, and scholarships focused on leadership to get women into the engine room, bridges, and boardrooms. To move the gender conversation away from women speaking to women about women's issues, because gender is an issue for everyone and it affects everyone. The more we can involve men in the conversation, the better outcomes we will achieve. As this audience knows, networking, mentoring, and peer support is critical for everyone in maritime, but especially when it comes to ensuring diversity at the highest levels. IMO is very much committed to women in the maritime agenda. I'm honoured to be invited to address this important event and pledge my ongoing support on behalf of IMO to promote female leaders and to the advancement of gender equality throughout the maritime sector. Let us continue all to be change makers and to create an inclusive and enabling maritime community for everyone. My hope is that in the future, we will see more success stories like the one that you can see on the screen from our inspiring women in the maritime sector. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
네, 루이스 프록터님.
Thank you, Louise Proctor, for sharing your initiatives about the Women in Maritime program and your progress. And thank you very much for sharing. And as was mentioned before, in 2019, IMO had this resolution adopted, and there were many initiatives implemented. And when I was the ambassador in the UK, I was the IMO Korean representative, and it was in 2019, the IMO Secretary General Im Gi-taek talked about the gender equality and the women in maritime. That is the SDG number 5, and he said that IMO should work harder for the goal. And in the IMO, the women ambassadors, including me, from Mexico, France, and Georgia, and Estonia. So these women ambassadors took a lead. And in 2019, we had a special topic or theme for 2019 that was the empowering the women in the maritime industry. And they adopted the resolution. And at IMO, it was about the very first such resolution to support the empowerment of women. So that was something that I really personally felt very relevant. And what kind of programs have been implemented and what plans you have. And I could hear that from your presentation. So that was really great. So now that was for the presentations.
그리고 우리 토론
And we have a panelist. The panelist that I would like to introduce to you is Ms. Sandra Cohen, Political Counselor of Embassy of France to Korea. So with the three previous speakers and the panelists, we're going to have a panel discussion. Ms. Sandra Cohen, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
아,
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. It's a great opportunity for me to talk in front of, after so many inspiring women. So my name is Sandra Cohen, and as you just introduced me, I am the political counselor of the French Embassy in Korea. I am also the gender equality advisor of the embassy. And this specific task is part of our feminist diplomacy, and my job is to advise the ambassador on how to implement concrete gender equality measures within the embassy to make sure that we avoid stereotypes in our communication, that we make sure to highlight women in all our events. So although I am not a maritime leader, I think that there are some similarities between the challenges that we female diplomats are facing and what women leaders in maritime activities are also facing. And I think, Madam Chair, you have a greater experience than me on this issue. But I think that people who decide to join the maritime-related occupations or the diplomatic careers are usually doing it by passion, despite many constraints for the family. And we are in careers that have long been considered as male bastions, in some countries like France at least. And because we are in time of change, things have greatly improved, but even now, there are still some gender issues, family, social pressure, stereotypes, etc. So to get back at maritime issues, let me say that in France, the feminization rate is still low in the maritime sector, about 21%, 21.4%, but it's much better than it was 2 decades ago. So we have many examples of successful women in leadership positions, and I would like to share with you some inspiring example, and particularly in the French Navy, because women are now everywhere in the French Navy, even at the most physically challenging occupations. So the French Naval Academy has been accepting women only since 1993, so it's pretty recent, and it has trained around 10 female officers per year, and to present, 23 have risen to command a vessel. In 2022, we have the first woman appointed as Rear Admiral. In 2005, the first female admiral, and 2 more in 2012 and 2014. And in 2016, we had the first woman appointed as frigate captain, Commander Claire Potier. She is the commanding officer aboard Lafayette class frigate Quai Prat, that's the name of the boat. So she became basically the first woman in the French Navy to command a combatant ship. And in 2021, we had the first woman who was appointed to lead a naval base. And last, since 2017, women are now allowed to serve in nuclear submarines. So many things have happened, and we have seen so many talented women rising on the top of the positions. We also have successful stories in other maritime-related sectors. First of all, our Minister of the Sea, she is a woman, Mrs. Annick Girardin. And we also had, until 2 years ago, a French woman who was heading the port of Marseille, which is a very major port in France. So I think it's very inspiring, and I wanted to highlight this achievement because they were deemed impossible a few years ago. So what made the difference? And I see three things that, in my opinion, helped and encouraged women. And I must say, it's quite the same recipe that works for diplomacy as well. So first, it's important to have national and international proactive policies, and I want to commend the work of IMO in this respect because it's giving a good impulse. It is hard to imagine any improvement without government commitment to address specific issues, etc. Second thing, things have changed because women have made efforts to empower themselves. That means that they realize their potential and they know their worth. And I would like to quote the woman admiral, Chantal Desbordes. She said that there is no need to be afraid. Women in general hesitate to put themselves forward because they are afraid of not being up to the task of what will everybody say. So if these women take the plunge, she said, they will find it interesting to work in a male world. Both sides have to play the game, and nothing is possible if no one comes part of the way to the other. So the last thing that I think is important in leadership in maritime sectors and in diplomacy, it is important to rely on women networks. And they provide so many types of support. For example, they can provide advice from peers of experts, good practice, knowledge. And in my ministry, for instance, we have such a group. We have a group called Women and Diplomacy. And it's very helpful to get some training before you have special interviews with the human resources. It's important to share with women who are confronted to the same issues in many parts of the world. And if for those who don't feel that they need support, I think the best thing is that they should realize it's time for them to give support to others, to become mentor and to lead by example. So it's part of this network of women. And that is something that I also do. So I find it very rewarding. I think I've spoken too long, so I will stop here. But I would like to thank the organizer for today's event. Very meaningful. Thank you.
Sandra.
Thank you. Please give a big hand to the political counselor, Ms. Sandra Cohen. She is working with the French embassy in Korea, and she is in charge of handling gender equality within the embassy. Well, I believe that gender equality manager like you should be everywhere across the public and private sector. And I can see that France has made a lot of progress in female leadership, particularly in the Navy. I can see that we have a captain for a battleship, and the Ministry of Ocean in France is also female. So that is really inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing with that. And she mentioned two important things for this change. Government commitment is one of them, like providing political support. And the second thing was making effort on their own, the female leaders. So that's a very important point. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and ideas. So with these two female leaders, I would like to ask some few questions.
So, Louise, you are an expert in the IMO, and Sandra is in the diplomacy, and you are all the experienced experts in your own field. So, in your own career, as you pursue your career, there might have been some challenges so far that you have experienced it. So, when something happens, when you face a crisis or challenge, how have you overcome these challenges? And what was your secret to turn these challenges into opportunities? I mean, you made it, that's why you are here. So, can you share your own personal experiences? Start with Louise, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the panel discussion and answer this very challenging question. Not so much a crisis, but one of the most significant challenges I have undertaken is commencing a career in the male-dominated maritime industry. It was a chance opportunity for me to commence employment with the Australian Maritime Safety Agency Authority, and I worked there for 9 years. And while Australia generally as a country is very supportive of women in the workplace and progressing into middle management and senior leadership positions, it is still, the maritime sector is still very male dominated as a general observation. And there were many times where I was the only female in the room, and offering opinions as a relatively young female as well, and trying to portray yourself with the authority and credibility that is needed to progress in leadership positions. It is a challenge, and I think for me, one of the biggest techniques or strategies that I use for myself is you really have to have a very strong sense of self and show up with that strength and resilience and that resolve, so that when you are faced with situations that would normally undermine you, you really have to draw on that inner strength to maintain your credibility. And for me, that's just something that I've always done, no matter how I might feel on the inside. That's not what I demonstrate on the outside, and it has done me well. I have progressed into a senior leadership position in the International Maritime Organization, and that is an organization itself which at my level there's only 33% women, so it was a big achievement for me, and I hope that other women in the audience and participating in this conference today will take something from that and have success in their own leadership journeys. Thank you.
산드라 씨는 특히 그 외교관으로서 저도 굉장히 많이 듣는 질문인데요. 한 나라에서 다른 나라 또 다른 나라로 굉장히 옮기는 직업이잖아요. 그런 직업을 계속하면서 또 여성이기 때문에 더 어려움이 있었을 텐데 이 부분 경험 한번 공유해 주시겠어요? You are a diplomat. As diplomat, I have many questions regarding my personal life because we have to move from one place to the other place, not just place from one country in one continent to another continent. So you must have some difficulties in managing your work and life. So what kind of experience can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. Actually, I am a mother, and my daughter is 13 years old. And the first time I moved across continent was when I was pregnant, and I had to move to Japan. And I just discovered that I was pregnant while I was preparing my move to Japan. So it was very challenging to be in another country and to become a mother without the help of your family. And I moved to Japan, and I was a consul in Tokyo at the time when we had the tsunami and the big earthquake and the nuclear issues. So at that time, I was wondering if I made the good choice of career, if I didn't put my child in danger, and I was lucky to have the support of the team, the support of the ministry, the support of the family to overcome this fear. I think when we stay strong, when we stay focused, we can manage to control our fear, to stay focused on our job. Then we moved back again in France a few years later, and now we moved back to Korea. And it's still a challenge to see how I can raise my child, how I can be present with my child, because we have very long working hours, many commitments. But the thing is, my daughter is pleased to see that I'm passionate about my job, and I'm happy to show her what it is to be happy at work, what it is to be successful. And one thing I want to say is that I could never done it without my husband. It's always a couple issue. So I'm glad that France allows men to take some time off their job to follow their spouse. And I think that's a great thing. Thank you very much.
So I can see that when you are moving around the world, your husband has provided a lot of support, like taking a long-term parental leave. So that is the support of the governments, like you said, indeed. So I am so grateful that you have such support from the government as well. And today's theme for this session is women empowerment and entrance to the maritime industry. I know, and we all know that entering the maritime industry is not easy for women, particularly if you are targeting the high position in the industry. We have only 1 or 2% of female leaders in the field. So it is indeed a very difficult area for women to work and take some leadership position. But I believe that this issue can be applied to many other industries as well. They can enter any market or industry. However, if they want to be and play some managerial role in any industry, it becomes really difficult for them, like becoming a minister or becoming a top executive at a company. That is so difficult for women, regardless of where you are. It's the same issue for all countries. So I would like to have some talk about this issue. So why is it so difficult for women to take some leadership role or managerial role? Why is it so difficult?
So, Louise, you go first.
Thank you very much. And I think, it's a fantastic question. And the more that we can talk about this and understand the barriers, we can help break those down. In the maritime industry, as I said in my last answer, it is a male-dominated industry, and that is a tradition that has a long history, and it runs very deep in the culture of the maritime industry. And I think that the length of that history is proportionate to the length of time it takes for women to break into the industry, to progress through the ranks, and to gain enough experience to successfully compete against highly qualified and skilled males for these senior positions. They come with years and years of experience. They don't face the same cultural backgrounds. They've had very, long education a lot of experience to build on from their past. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But, you know, I also think that the having these sorts of conferences, the programs that we're undertaking, you know, the political drive and the dialogue that's happening globally, I think that those sorts of things are starting to overcome the barriers for women to take leadership positions. Thank you.
Sandra?
And Sandra?
Same
So
question.
in diplomacy, what the main challenge for women is to believe they can do the job as well as men. They tend to think that they are not skilled enough, not competent enough, not trained enough. So one thing that we are doing in our women network is to train women who are preparing exams, because to get higher position, either you have to take a competition, either you have to take an appointment and you have to defend your file. So we are training them, we are looking at their career, and we are showing them, here, you've done something wonderful. There, you should highlight your skill, because nobody else has the same. So I think the main challenge is to overcome your fear and to go for it. Thank you.
지금 이제
So we had some talk about why women feel difficulties in going for managerial positions. So we talked about some cultural barriers, and we also talked about some lack of confidence in women. So yes. So, well, having said that, we have to tackle these challenges, right? As a women, we have to work on our solidarity and network so that we can invite new, younger women for this. And we have to provide some good consulting for them. We have to be a good mentor so that they can be confident in themselves. So we have to take actions for that too. So this conference is part of that effort. Lee Convention opened this conference to provide that consulting for women workers. So I hope that more and more female workers can be confident in themselves and knock the doors that were never opened for other women earlier. So we have to motivate women more and more. So how can we motivate them? Can you briefly give some comment on that too? Can you start with Louise first?
그런데 고위직 진출을 위한 유리창.
How can we break the glass ceiling? And what do we need to do to break down the glass ceiling? And what can we do for the younger women, new generation? Any thoughts? Can you share with us, Sandra, please?
Oh, definitely. I think to motivate women, you have to show them a good example of successful and happy women. It's important to be happy in your work so that people know that you can do it and be successful. So one thing that I found very inspiring is to listening to testimonies, experience of higher rank women. And when I listen to them, I see that they overcame many difficulties and it's possible. So I found this very inspiring, and that's what I would recommend.
루이스 씨.
Louise, please.
Thank you very much. Speaking from the International Maritime Organization and our program, we are about intervening at the early stages of females' career development and offering them the same opportunities for education and work experience, so that when it comes time to putting their best foot forward and, you know, channeling or overcoming the fear, as Sandra put it, I think that they feel more confident, consistently raising awareness of the barriers and talking about proactive measures that organisations can take to integrate women into the maritime sector is critical to ensure that the mindsets and the changes that are needed to happen can become embedded in the norm of an organisation's culture rather than the exception. And the way that we do that at the IMO is through the International Maritime Law Institute and the World Maritime University. So the International Maritime Law Institute was the first UN body to set a minimum requirement that at least 50% of students be women. And the World Maritime University is also making very good progress in increasing the number of women students, currently around 40%. So I think, there's very tangible things we can do like that in terms of training and experience. But then I think there's some of that softer stuff that Sandra is talking about in terms of people's mindsets, their confidence, their overcoming fears, and those sorts of things in terms of, networks and governments also supporting women to have a family through government policies and, being able to have that balance. Because as Sandra said, of course, when you're faced with a decision between family and employment, family has a resounding factor in people's decision making, and if they don't feel that they can manage both employment and lifestyle and family commitments, then that becomes a real challenge. So I think that government policies have a big role to play. Thank you.
네, 두 분 말씀 아주 감사합니다.
Thank you for your comments. So to enable women to go for those high positions, I believe that we have to raise the gender awareness, particularly for the general public first. And as a diplomat, reflecting on my personal experience, when I first joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Korea, only 0.1% of the personnel were female. We had a lot of ambitious women back then, but they didn't just go for this field because they thought that diplomats are just an occupation preserved for male. So they were just not confident themselves back then. But now things have changed. And in our ministry, for the junior level, 60% or more than 60% are female. So that's a great change over the last 3 or 4 decades. So the government is also supporting the female workers, particularly in those professional fields. And I, believe that female workers need to take some great pride and confidence in themselves so that they can go further. So I personally witnessed such progress in the diplomatic scene in Korea. So I would like to ask all the people here and the panelists that because you are the senior member of your field now, you can be a role model for younger generation. So I hope that you can show that there are great possibilities and opportunities and new path for them. You have to help them navigate new path. So I believe that our future generation, female workers, can do better job in the future. So once again, thank you so much for taking time for this discussion. And I would also like to thank all the audience to be with us, for being with us for today's conference. So this will be the end of the session. Thank you so much, everyone.
네,
Thank you very much. On the topic of women leadership, Ambassador Park Eun-ha and the presenters and the panelists, thank you very much. Please give them another big round of applause. And now it's over 7, so you might be very hungry. And we're gonna take 5 to 10 minute break, and then we will start the dinners to be served. So we're gonna come back in a few minutes.